they dismantled some of the arms and hit the parts of the rifles on the persons of their women. They were able to keep these weapons concealed, and when they were placed in the barracks, they reassembled the rifles and hid them under the floorboards. That was in October 1878. And they were kept at Fort Robinson, allowed quite a bit of freedom to go out and hunt. They were waiting, the Army authorities were waiting word from Washington, D.C. on what to do with them, whether to let them go on into Montana where they were going, or return them to Oklahoma. The word on their disposition did not come until about December, the end of December 1878. And the word was bad. The word was that they would have to return to Oklahoma. Dullknife and the other leaders said, "No, we will not go back to Oklahoma. We were dying down there. We were sick. It is a country that we cannot live in. We won't go back to Oklahoma. We will die up here first." So the garrison commander cut off food, water, and wood to heat the building. And for 4 days, the Cheyennes walked back and forth inside the barracks and sang. And then on January 9th, 1879, about 10 o'clock at night, a shot was fired and one of the guards toppled to the ground. And all the people inside came pouring out of the windows, the doors, and they came out, and the soldiers, the guards were housed in the next building. They came out firing, and then the rest of them had to be alerted, and they came across firing on the people. Most of the men, most of the Cheyenne were shot down around this area. Among the people that came out of the barracks was Dullknife's 4 daughters. There were 4 daughters of Dullknife and his Pawnee wife. The older one was carrying the youngest one, the youngest one was about 4 years old. The oldest was perhaps 18. And then there was another one was about 14. And then there was my grandmother, who was around 14 years old too. I heard this story from my grandmother. And the older one was carrying the younger one. She was shot down somewhere out there. She didn't die. She didn't die from the strike of the bullet. She lived long enough to take her baby sister off her back and told her, "You saw the way they went, follow them." Sometimes I can just barely keep from crying, thinking about a little 4-year-old being told to run for her life. There was screaming, there was firing, and this little baby, this little girl, passed away up in Montana, in Busby, Montana, in 1953. My grandmother passed away in 1941. And then they fled down to the creek, crossed it, and they went up the creek, and about 2.5 miles in that direction, they came out of the creek bed, crossed over and went up into the hills with the soldiers after them. And the military spent 2 weeks to round up these handful of Cheyenne. They were finally recaptured, and those that were recaptured were captured in a hole, but it's to the north of Fort Robinson. I've been to that place. The last stand that the Cheyennes made. The rest of the people were brought back and replaced in the barracks.
Those who survived the battle, a few dozen or so, mostly women and children, were eventually taken to the Pine Ridge Reservation with the Ogallala Sioux, the very people